Alright, hello you crazy people out there, this is DragoniteSpam and welcome back to making tower defense games. So in the last part, there are different kinds of towers. There's like big ones that shoot fast, there's like big ones that shoot slow and have big range, there's ones that shoot fast. And in this part I'm going to kind of continue that. Let's see. I would like to get these guys shooting slowly in action, but I think I'm going to have to wait until like another round comes maybe. And a few things get through like this. Yeah, there we go. So they're shooting a lot slower, they're letting things through. You should probably not put your slower towers at the end of the track in tower defense games, but I'm not here to discuss strategy. Anyway, so at the end of the last video, I mentioned one that I was having recording troubles, and I might have fixed those, although knowing my luck, I'm probably going to, like, burn down half of New Jersey next time I try to compile or something. I'm going to do, speaking of fire, bullets that burn. So I'm going to duplicate that again. I'm going to move that aside. I'm going to, is there any code in the bullet object? Okay. There's this homing shot, which is kind of weird, which might be fun to re-implement, like, properly later on. The collision with the bullet is in the enemy. And instead of putting it here, because I want to have different bullets have different effects, instead of putting it here, I'm going to go get rid of that event and put that code in the bullet object. Let's see, what was it? Collision with enemy. And as it is right now, this code would happen for the bullet object, which doesn't make any sense because enemies don't have attack. Actually, do they? Like the amount of HP they take off and make you game over? And the bullets obviously don't have HP. So to get around that, to make with other, to make it so that this code happens within the enemy object that it hits, you can say with other. The other is a special type of object, not unlike global, that refers to the instance in the collision event. So in this case, the specific enemy that the bullet collides with. And it's kind of funny because inside that, I'm also using the other object, which is referencing the bullet's attack power, and then destroying it, which is kind of funny. Speaking of which, though, I'm going to move that outside of this this other, and it's just going to instance destroy out here. If I wanted to not have to use this other control block over here, I could go and just use this for the independent variables themselves. So other.hp uses the bullet's attack variable. If other.hp is less than 0, then basically you delete it like this, and this would use its own with other. This really depends on how you want to organize your code. I'm not going to do that because having more object references all over the place kind of makes the code harder to read, and I don't really want that, but nevertheless, see, that's how the bullets work, and I'm going to go create another folder, bullet types, and I'm going to drag this in there, and like I did with the tower, I'm going to delete this bullet fire. And let's see, this, I already have a copy of that code, so I don't really need it anymore. This is collision code that I'm going to make some modifications to later, and outside room, that's just the same as it is in the parent bullet object, and I can just inherit it over here. Let's see. Also, again, like I did with the towers, bullet sprites, and I'm going to make a different looking bullet, so I'm going to just bullet red. This one's going to be like burning or something. Red. Hang on a moment. Alright, there we go. I can get out of there. I can close out of that. And the bullet fire object. Why is GameMaker having problems? I don't see actually the recording having problems this time. It's just GameMaker that's having problems, which is very strange. Like, nothing is happening on my computer right now. And I don't know why GameMaker is lagging. Maybe I should take a minute to restart it or something. But before I do that, because I'm probably going to forget by the time I get back, I'm going to change this sprite to bullet red, so if one gets shot out of a tower, you can see what happens to it. And yeah, excuse me while I restart GameMaker. Towers, yeah. Okay, so I would also need to go and create, I think, another tower type that, let's see. Why did I have this? Well, I guess I was... That sounds like a good name. I'm going to have it have the same, let's see. That restart really didn't do anything as far as the speed of the computer went, and I don't know why. This needs to inherit from tower. It's going to inherit the entire create event, so I don't need to add anything. It's going to inherit the entire alarm event. Step, I think I want to change. Left to released can go, draw can go, and draw GUI can go. Alright, so in this case, the only thing I want to change is creating, let's see, where is it? Over here, creating bullet to change this to bullet. No. Spelling. Bullet fire. God. It took me 4 tries to spell that right, but this is going to be shooting off a bullet fire. And I said in the last part, if you're ever duplicating code, that's probably a bad thing. And to deal with that, let's see. I could put this in a script and have the tower execute the script and take the bullet type that it takes as a parameter. And I'm thinking I'm going to have to do that soon. The tower behavior default, because that's really what it is. And if anything, computer is even worse than it was a minute ago. This is going to go in here. The step event is going to execute tower this script, which again, it took me multiple tries to spell correctly. And I'm going to have it take a parameter. So let's see, let's get out of there. Triple slashes so that you can see what it does. And the parameter that it is going to take is going to be the bullet type. And instead of saying instance create bullet fire, bullet whatever, bullet like happy face or something, like I did with the buttons creating the tower a little while ago, this is just going to, it's just going to create an instance of whatever object type is stored in the argument 0 parameter, which would be the first argument that the function takes. Like over here, it needs to be passed either bullet or bullet fire or some other object, although some other object would probably just make it like do nothing. Anyway, the tower of fire is going to take the bullet of fire, and if I go and copy this and do this exact same thing in the parent tower event, this is going to take, instead of the bullet of fire, the regular bullet. And once again, it's going to just do the exact same thing as it did before. Let's see, is there anything else I have to do? If you wanted to return a value, I guess the logical thing to do would be to have it return the bullet that it shoots out, so that if you want to do any, like tracking the bullet that the tower shoots afterwards, you can do that. And if you want to do that, at the end of this code, this is the end of whatever happens whenever any shooting, I'm just going to say return B. And if it doesn't return B, if there isn't an enemy it can shoot at, or if it's being dragged around by the mouse or something, it's just going to return, just pretty much represents no object. I should do an entire video on all the different special object types, because there are a number of them and they are quite useful. Let's see, as it is, I don't really plan on doing anything with the bullet after it's shot out of the tower, so I don't need to do anything here, but just in case, you don't need to necessarily do anything with a return value when you call a function, but it can be nice to have. Up in this help line, this won't show up like in the function help at the bottom when you type this function name, but just to make a note that it returns a bullet. The other thing that I'm thinking of, you might want to go like more or less insane with this, depending on what behavior you want the towers to do. But something like the speed of the bullet that it shoots could be argument 1, and in this case, maybe, for example, if you want a tower to shoot faster or slower than the default speed of 16, you could tell it that. And since these are not interested in changing the default fire speed, let's see, these are just going to be 16 anyway. And this type of tower has been set up. I'm just going to go quickly make, how about another sprite to represent fire? Alright, so the tower is blue sprite with a red box and a red cross through it. And this is just going to be named Tower Fire. Blue Fire, rather. Okay, so enough of that. Change this sprite, Tower Fire Blue. And next thing to do is going to be to add a button down here to create one of these fancy things. I should move... This new button is going to have to be created somewhere moved over a little bit because creation code, because there's no more space going vertically on the screen. Let's see, this is going to create Tower of Fire, and let's make the cost 20 because presumably burning a target is a positive effect. There should be good. Alright. Now, the last thing to do regarding the actual fire, the fire bullet doesn't currently actually inflict burn on the enemy, which is really the whole allure of the idea. So here in the collision event, other dot on fire equals true, and to program this effect into the enemy. And again, I do know of other ways to do this that would probably be more efficient and more flexible, but for the time being, I have to write these things down because I'm probably going to forget by the end of the video. For the time being, in the create event, enemies are going to have on fire, and the default value is going to be false. And in the step event, let's see, for the enemy, the code of if on fire, then HP minus equals some value, and since they only start out with like 10 HP, I guess it would make sense to lose 1/10 of a health point in every step if you're on fire or something like that. Also, since this is an event that could result in a death condition, it would be best to move this code out of the collision event and move it into the enemy step event so that they check in every step if they should be dead or not. Because as this game evolves, there are going to be more and more ways that enemies can take damage, and having the game check if they're dead or not in every single one of those sections of code will get very unwieldy very quickly. So while this may make the computer do a little bit of extra processing, it'll definitely make programming the game a lot easier. And since this is the year 2015 and not like 1995, it really shouldn't have any effect on how fast the game runs, unless you're on my computer, which is, again, slowing down for no apparent reason. So, as it stands, the enemies are going to burn indefinitely if they get burnt, which might make the game a little bit broken, as in like too easy, because they're doomed to die after a certain number of steps anyway. I think 100 steps it'll be, because they start out with 10 HP, and you lose 1/10 of a health point every step if you're burnt. Anyway, balancing is something that I'll do later on, but anyway, if this game could run a little faster, I'd like to see if this code that I just wrote works at all. Okay, so finally it's loaded. I'm going to click that button, create a fire tower, and let's see, it appeared to not burn them. I know it's shooting fire bullets because the circle is red, but it appears to not be burning them, and I don't know why. I'm going to want to go back into GameMaker. My god, this is getting slow. Like, if you go into Task Manager, it hasn't used more than like 10% of my CPU in hours. It really shouldn't be this slow. I don't know if I accidentally turned on a setting that like caps the amount of work that it can do at a really low fraction of its potential or something, but oh my god. Anyway, on collision with the enemy, it should be catching fire. On fire is true, and the enemy's step, if on fire is true, HP minus equals 1. I don't see anything going on here. So the two possibilities are that it it's not catching fire for some reason, even though it really should be, or that it is catching fire and it's not draining the HP, which it really should be. So I'm gonna look in here. I did. What is this? This is bullet fire. How did this end up? This is the enemy's code. How did that end up in there? That would cause a problem. Alright, so I'm going to cut and paste that over to the enemy. That's really weird. I don't know how it ended up in there, because I'm pretty sure that I was... Never mind. Take two. Alright, loaded. Going to go and create one of these things. The enemies are going to come marching in. And, let's see. Are you slowly losing HP? You're still not slowly losing HP. What's going on? Is the wrong code happening in the wrong object or something again? Alright, this is bullet fire, and it should be setting the enemy on fire. And this is the enemy. If it's on fire, it should be losing HP. Like I said last time, is there any reason that the fire variable could be resetting on its own when it shouldn't be? I don't see anything like that. This is debugging. This is the aggravating part of making games. Alright, so like I did with the towers, I'm going to try and test the fire variable by saying if on fire, draw set color red, otherwise black. That way, if it's on fire, the HP bar is going to show up as red, and if it's not on fire, it's going to show up as black. That could actually be an interesting way to display status conditions of enemies, but before I start worrying about that, I have to make sure the status conditions actually work. Take three. Alright, here we are once again, you. And indeed, they aren't burning. The text above their heads is still black, so that would be the problem. And... oh, I see. I'm setting the bullet on fire, but that doesn't do anything because the bullets don't have anything to do with the fire variable. That would be because I was forgetting about this statement up here. You should be careful with these with whatever object statements, because things like that can happen that you kind of forget they're there. Anyway, this is effectively the bullet executing this code, so their HP is being drained and their fire variable is being set to true. So I could take this out, but I'm going to leave it there because I'm thinking that could actually be kind of useful as a way to display status conditions, at least early on. Towards the end, when I'm polishing stuff up, I'll probably go and make some kind of fire icon and draw that next to their HP bar to show that they're on fire, but for now, this will do. Alright, what is this? Take four. I'm going to go and create a tower, and alright, they've got a decimal amount of HP, which should be happening. The text is turning red to show that they're on fire. This is a rather overpowered tower, and I should probably way turn down the amount of damage that fire does every step. But in any case, they're getting farther now because they have more initial HP. Let's see, let's wait until this round is over. The next round has, what, like 15 points of health, and I'm curious how far they're able to get before dying. Alright, so they're getting to about here. So yeah, this is definitely an overpowered tower. And the burn effect needs to be turned down. But anyway, I mentioned poison additionally. Really, computer? Why are you doing this? You weren't doing this, like, literally last night. Anyway, I mentioned poison earlier, but that effect is basically identical to that of burn. It might be a little bit different depending on how you want to implement it. Maybe different enemies can't be burned or different enemies can't be poisoned, but doing that right now would pretty much just involve copying and pasting a couple things and changing the color of the burn sprite and burn tower and stuff. And I don't really want to do that. Something maybe more interesting would be a slow effect that you could apply to enemies that would slow their movement speed down by like 10% for, I don't know, 2 seconds or something like that. There's a lot of possible effects that you could apply to towers and bullets and shooting. re-adding the homing bullet concept would probably be fairly simple to do. Just make another version of the bullet object that that does not have the homing code disabled. But anyway, I'll leave that for another day. If you want a copy of this project file, it's in the description of this video. As always, rate, comment, and subscribe. Watch some of the stuff I have uploaded, and I will see you all later.